Welcome to Landlord Diaries, where we talk about midterm rentals and the opportunities behind them. We'll share landlord stories, talk about maximizing investment potential, and discuss how to live the very best landlord life. This podcast is proudly brought to you by Furnished Finder, the place for everything midterm rentals. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoy our content.
As always, thanks for joining us. This is Kelly Bailey, your host of the Landlord Diaries. I'm here with my wonderful co-host and our Furnish Finder marketing director, Katie Lyon. Take it away, Katie. What do you think about this episode?
Hey. This episode was so fun. We got to talk to Sasha, and Sasha grew up in a traveling family, so she's seen it from both sides. She was in over 20 states growing up, which just absolutely blew my mind. And now it's so cool to see how she's taken little tidbits of what she learned as a traveling child and throughout her years of growing up, and adapted it to making travel the easiest for travel nurses with the homes that she is creating. So it's a good one.
Let's go ahead and bring in the star of this episode, Sasha Reyes. Sasha and her husband, Jesse, have a Furnish Finder rental in Winterhaven, Florida, and are currently in the process of setting up a second rental in South Carolina. She is a new superstar on Furnish Finder, but an Airbnb superhost with 24 quality reviews. Sasha has a unique story, which I'm so excited for us to dive into, because she grew up in a traveling medical family and now has come full spectrum and is going to be hosting similar guests on Furnish Finder. So, hi, Sasha. How are you today?
Hi, ladies. Hi, Kelly and Katie. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Let's dive in. So, Sasha, tell us what it was like growing up on the road with your mom as a traveling medical professional.
Definitely. Well, it was a constant change of environment, to say the least. I started at a very young age, so I kind of got used to adapting to the different cities, states, and climates. Of course, being from South Florida, we were in some very very chilly states, and we had no choice but to roll with it. So I think that it made for a very good life experience.
Awesome.
And that was throughout your entire childhood, is that correct?
Mostly throughout my entire childhood. My mom, we didn't pretty much settle back in Florida until like my late high school years. So even
Wow.
throughout like sophomore year, we were still traveling.
And how often did y'all move around?
Yeah, how often? What did that look like?
Yeah. So as you ladies may know, I mean, a contract can be as little as 13 weeks, in the average. So it'd be from 3 months to could be 6 months, it could be 9 months. But we were never in one assigned location for over 12 months.
Wow. And did y'all
Wow.
homeschool or how did you do school?
No, no. School was like like it used to be. Just going to school. My dad would sign us up, or my mom would sign us up. We'd have to take all our documents as you were to register at any public school district, transfer records, all that good stuff. Sometimes took days or whatnot, and we would be in a school for 3 months, even if it meant just that amount of time.
Wow.
But my parents always made sure that we were enrolled, so that was we didn't get if we weren't lucky enough to just be like, oh, not go to school or homeschool, we would go to actual school.
So was that
Yeah.
hard or did you like it?
I mean, in the beginning, I guess I thought it was a bit harder. But as a creature of that we are of habit, like after something just becomes your reality, you kind of just start adapting to that. At some point, I remember myself kind of getting bored after like 2 months of being in the school. I'm just like, okay, I'm ready for the next one. I kind of
Oh,
don't like it
really?
here, or whatever the case may be. Because yeah, I mean, just think about it. I was started about second grade is when I first traveled to my first school outside of Florida. We were in
Wow.
Iowa, middle of the winter, and it was just different. I remember it being very different there.
Hmm.
We lived in Montana, Billings, Montana, also very different. Northern California, uh, Southern Arizona. So just constantly living in different environments. And there was just some schools that I didn't really like. I do remember that one of my favorite areas, I guess, or maybe I was just welcomed a little bit differently, but just like the East Coast, the Northeast Coast, like, the Pocono Mountains, that was always a very nice area. I guess I really just like the landscaping too. I'm a landscape person and an architecture person, and I just love that whole New England kind of feel. But I also like that ranch feel, like back in Montana. Like Montana to me was very beautiful. Even just driving through the plateaus or the mountains or whatever. That's something that I really clinged onto, and getting to know Indian reservations and stuff like
Ah,
that. So that was pretty neat as well. So it gave me a life experience, and I've learned a lot from it. And I think that it did more good for me than bad at the end of the day.
nice.
Did you keep track of how many states you lived in?
Mm,
Yeah, we lived in about I'd say almost 20 states.
wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and not all of them did I necessarily enroll in school. So there may be sometimes, especially on the off season, if it was like summertime, we just, my mom happened to work in that area throughout the summer. We just wouldn't be enrolled in school. Or at times, we would go back to Florida, and then we would just stay in Florida. And then my mom would just, if it was something very like just a short contract, she would just go on her own,
Mm.
handle the contract for those said 2 months or 3 months,
Okay.
and then come back. So at some point, we would just roll with whatever came our way.
Uh,
Wow.
Katie, or we're saying wow, like 20 states. I wonder how many of our traveling medical professionals like 20. Yeah, that's pretty normal. I don't know.
Right, like that sounds about right. And to me, I'm just like,
Yeah.
I mean, we moved 2 miles down the street and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that was rough." You had kids into the mix and everything is just so much harder and crazier. And like you
Yeah.
said, you think of school and friends and
Mhm,
activities and
mhm,
I mean, that's no easy thing. That was, but it does create a lot of cool memories, I think, as well.
mhm.
Yeah, and I kind of do feel you, Katie. Like we get that a lot from our family. Like, because at the end of the day, we're not settled into like one town or city. So we were living in Southern Florida for the longest, until we're just like, you know what, we need to buy a house, and we just simply can't afford a
Right.
house in here, and we just like, let's just move to Central Florida. We have no one there. There's absolutely no one there. But I'm just like, hey, we gotta I guess coming from my background where I just had that sense of like I have never been tied down to one city, one
Right.
town, one
Mhm.
state. I just didn't find it very hard to just say, hey, we got to go find a house in Winterhaven.
Right.
So our family looked at us like, you guys are nuts. But it's nothing. Everything is just a drive or a plane ride away. That's how I think about it.
Right.
Yep. I
No,
love
I
that.
th- I think that's pretty cool.
So, how do you feel this whole experience growing up has shaped who you are today?
Yeah, definitely. I think it makes me more knowledgeable in a lot of ways. Just even getting to know new places, and you get to know new things and learn new things. It gives a topic of conversation. Many places of which you might be talking to someone one day, and they might be from that same town or whatever the case. And it's happened in several occasions where you're just in a conversation with someone, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, I have a friend there, or I went to school there," or whatever the case may be. So just being more well rounded,
Mm,
more knowledgeable, and also just getting to know all different kinds of people,
mm,
and we do have 50 states in our country, and every which state in this country is very different, from the culture to the accents to the
mhm.
people in general, even the
Mhm.
food that we eat. So I think that that's pretty neat, and it just has made me a well-rounded person in that sense.
And I think in a past conversation, you had said that you grew up in a Cuban American family and really only knew that heritage.
Being Cuban American, being raised in Southern Florida, it's like your mini Cuba. It really is, especially if you're born and raised there. And my mom, she had that perspective where she did want to change. She wanted to change of scenery. So her taking that traveling, career, really did that for us.
Mhm.
Getting away of that. stereotype lifestyle in Southern Florida, and just kind of getting to know the world and getting to know our country in general definitely made me more Americanized. Although my first language was Spanish because my parents were Cuban, I mean, technically, I spoke English at a very young age. Going to public school, as you would in Florida or in any school. But the culture is obviously different from the food that we ate to the things that we listen to, the music, the way we dress, everything. So
Mhm.
just getting to experience the American lifestyle, getting to meet people in other cities and states that taught my parents a lot of new things. My mom had and she always had a heavy Cuban accent, and people early on in her traveling career, she was lucky enough to make good friends, and people would sometimes correct her, and they would compare her to I Love Lucy and Ricky Ricardo. Like my parents were those, like to them, because they had that, that spunk and that kind of character. Were like, oh, hey, well, you guys are different, right? And anytime they would miss say a word or something so simple, they would nicely correct them. So I think that for every one of us, it was just a constant change of culture and just getting to know our country in general. So I think that it made us more Americanized. It made us more in tune with our country, with our people,
Mhm.
with what it is to be an American in general, and not just a Cuban American.
Awesome.
Now, you grew up with so many changes, constant changes, different locations, all of those things. Do you see any reflection of learning to adapt to change and try new things and be thrown into new situation in your professional life as well?
Definitely. So to start off with my professional background, I went to college for communications. I mean, something very broad, but I have I haven't been very successful in tying myself down into a corporate lifestyle, and not because I can't, just because my background doesn't allow me to. I am a creature of just being a free woman, and I work with who I work and when I work. So I
Right.
think that from the way I was raised, I'm an independent contractor. I choose who I want to work with when I want to work, and etc. You can take it from there. But as far as that kind of that's from my background. I realize that now, that I can't be tied to one place. I just can't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I like that change and always having a different challenge and just getting to know and new people, getting to speak to new people, and just being in that constant change of environment. I know that for some people it might seem like, oh wow, you must be constantly like on the go, but it doesn't trouble me at all. And as far as being a current landlord and getting to accommodate people in that field, it helps me out because I know that when you're on the road, there's certain essentials that you need, and that the fact that you're going to be traveling and you're out of the comfort of your own home, etc. We want to make sure that we provide those certain essentials for you to feel at home. And you not necessarily have to go out and purchase those things. Something as simple as a blender, or simple things of that nature, that you don't have to go out to the store and buy an appliance or anything for you to be comfortable in your home or in that said property for those 3 to 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
So I feel that my background in the way I was raised, or just simply traveling so much, gives me that knowledge of, like, the things, of the essentials that a traveler needs. We used to travel with a 12-foot trailer, and at one point, my dad just got sick of it because we would really drag our house everywhere we went. We would, put a trailer in the car and just drag it 600 miles this way or take it 1,000 miles the other way, and we would move in and out of an apartment
Wow.
or a home every single time, and that it takes work. And again, Katie, going back to, like, after having children, we traveled with three. I was the oldest. At
Oof.
first, it was just me and my brother, and then my little sister came on after a few years, and we were traveling a whole family of five, constantly adapting and changing our environment in our homes and things like that. To the point, like I said, at one point, my dad was just like, "Listen, we can't be traveling with all these things."
Right.
So this is one of those things. And, you always try to make your family, comfortable,
Mhm.
Right.
especially that we're changing environments all the time. So making the home, and this is what this podcast is all about, finding that furnished finder that makes you feel homey and welcomed and comfortable for that extension of your contract. So that was our goal everywhere we moved, essentially.
Love it.
There we
So,
go.
Sasha, you have traveled a lot. Um, what made you, and let's just focus on your current property that you already have guests in. What made you land and purchase a home in Winter Haven, Florida?
Yeah. So, in one of our previous questions, I mentioned how I have no sense of being tied down to any area or any town or any state in that factor. At the time, back before the pandemic, because now I feel like we're talking in ages here. It's like pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, but this is before pandemic. We were living in Southern Florida, and to say the least, things were getting a little expensive back then.
Mhm.
And I had just had my son Marcel, and I'm just like, listen, I'm tired of renting. This is, it's getting a bit excessive, and I just kind of want to not being. I don't want to be so stressed out paying rent every day.
Right. Yeah.
It's a very stressful thing, especially when it's going to someone else's pocket.
Yes.
So after and analyzing things, I decided to take a break of everything, a break of life, everything, and we went over to Colorado. We went to Colorado for like 3 months,
It's a good
and
place to
we ended.
be.
Yes, it's the perfect escape. I tell that to everyone, anyone that needs a break in life. I'm just like, go to the Colorado mountains. Just
Mm.
just spend a few weeks there. You'll
Yep.
find what you're looking for. And
Yep.
that was the break that I needed. I needed that break in life and just, cut ties with anything that we had at that time. And we went to Colorado Springs. We were there for almost 3 months, and just got things into perspective. Started thinking about our goals and what we needed to do to get there, and we did. We had the blessing of having some awesome Airbnb hosts, and they had this little duplex, a 2-unit duplex. They lived on one side and they rented out the other side to me. And I'm just like, well, these guys are not paying no mortgage, no nothing. We're paying their mortgage, and they're
Yep.
here chilling.
Yep.
I want to be like them.
So was that the first time you had thought about real estate as a possible future?
Yes, it's not the first time I wanted to be a boss, but it was the first time
Well,
that
sure.
I said, someone else is going to pay my mortgage.
Right.
In the good sense, not in any other crazy sense. In the good sense
Right.
of, you know what I mean? Hey, you have a property, and it can always make you money, to say the least. So that's the first time that we put that idea into perspective. And we thought about purchasing in Colorado. We were like, not being tied down to Florida whatsoever. I said, okay, let me start looking at the Colorado market. Let's see how things are doing, how, the price out here and this and that. And at the time, I'm just like, okay, the things that we could afford need a little work. And then the places that are new builds are kind of remote. And I don't want to be so remote out here because it is Colorado and it snows.
Right.
And, at the same time, you got to be a little smart. So I'm just like, we held off the idea on that. In January of 2020, we moved back to Florida, and I already knew, I was already in the process of my pre-approval. I said, this year, I am not moving back into another rental. I am going to get a house. The next house I move into is going to be our house. And so we did that. 3 months later, we had our home in Winter Haven. We realized that in Southern Florida, it was just obviously out of our budget at that time. And we moved on up. We're like, okay, I work a lot in my industry of events and marketing. I was having a lot of clientele in Orlando, Florida. But Orlando was getting really pricey too.
Mhm.
So, I got myself a good realtor, however you pronounce that word, realtor. And she scouted me all over Central Florida, from Orlando to Lakeland to Kissimmee to Winter Haven.
Right.
And we came across this beautiful new built community. And it was it. It was like one of those things, as lady intuitions, we kind of just look at a place and we're just like, okay, I can see myself here. This is it. So this is the first home that we've bought ever. Was in Winter Haven. But I was happy that it happened when it did.
Mhm.
to say the least. I was telling Kelly in our initial intro interview last week that I just felt like it was a time for change and to change fast. And I know that
Mm-hmm.
some things, we it's out of our explanation as far as how we feel the energy around us. But when I was in Colorado, I was just so, I kind of came to that clarity. I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I had to do to get there. But at the same time, I felt something. I felt like, listen, if I don't do this now, like it's either now or never.
Mhm.
That's how I was feeling at the time. And right after we signed those papers of purchasing our first home, COVID unfortunately hit. And boy, was I happy that we had our own home, because
Right.
imagine paying 24 months to another landlord rent.
Mm-hmm.
So so that's when all that happened. Things still became difficult throughout 2020.
Mhm.
Obviously, in my field of work, being a consumer related kind of industry, marketing, events, and all that, that wasn't happening in 2020.
Mhm.
Right.
So, I did what I could. We did what we could to stay afloat. And by early 2021, I'm just like, listen, things are getting real tight, and I need to start making some profit off of this
Mm-hmm.
property we have, and that's what we did. We had an empty guest room that was just literally empty, not even storage,
Mhm.
nothing. It was just empty, collecting dust. And so I told my husband, I said, listen, we have Legoland right here. I've looked plenty of times, in the area for hotel stays and things like that, and there just isn't many options out here in Winter Haven as far as
Right.
Mhm.
hotels and Airbnbs and stuff. And I'm just like, I think we have a very promising market. And so we did that. We listed ourselves in Airbnb. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but we kind of just locked up our stuff in our bedrooms, make sure we had double locks on the bedrooms, kept our garage nice and locked up, and we would give people access to the home. They can stay in our home, use our backyard, use all that good stuff.
Wow.
And have a comfortable spot for them and their families, whether they came to Legoland or whether they worked at a hospital.
Mhm.
Initially, my first professionals, believe it or not, that I had staying for an extended stay in the property were a couple of pilots. There's a few airports down there that I had. If these pilots would have never stayed in the home, I would have never even known we had like these airports in the area. So that was pretty neat. So that was my first experience with that. And then I started getting a lot of requests of traveling nurses.
Mm.
I was gonna say, because those previous ones were probably more short-term rental
Yeah,
Airbnb
yeah,
type, right? Like maybe you go for a weekend and you guys would go to a family member's house or something.
yeah.
So how did that cross over into more the midterm rentals where obviously you don't want to just leave your house for 3 months, or maybe you do, I don't know.
Well, Katie, when it comes to you know, when it comes to a hustler's mentality, we're lucky enough to where my husband, his mom's house was in Hollywood. So anytime that we would have to leave for a week or so, we'd just go down there. I'd pick up a couple of jobs in the area, and it would all be good and dandy. We also ended up buying a lot of land in the near area, about an hour away, in the area of Sebring. I'm not sure if you've heard of that area in Florida, but it's a little bit southern, and it's known for there's 24 hours of Sebring. So there's a huge raceway there, and it's like a national kind of racing thing. So anyone that's
Okay.
into racing knows the 12 hours of Sebring, and it's like a
Okay.
kind of staple little town. We bought a lot of land out there, and we were like, listen, maybe we can just live out here too, off grid.
Mhm.
I'm all into that off grid stuff, especially during the pandemic. I'm just like, babe, we need to be off grid. This is
Right.
so we got ourselves a little cabin out there,
Ah.
and yeah, we were living all that off grid life anytime we had to, and
Love it.
that's how we did that. So between our off grid cabin and southern Florida, because Winter Haven is in Central Florida, so Southern Florida is a little bit more down 3 hours
Mhm.
south. That's how we would work that during that time, as far as having to live somewhere. And, my son is still young enough to where it's not an issue with school and that kind of
Right.
stuff. So, definitely at some point we have to settle ourselves to a set area.
Mhm.
But as of right now, that's what we were doing until this year hit around, and we're just like, you know what? Why don't we just go to the Carolinas? Let's go find something in
You
the
guys
Carolinas.
be fun to just like spend a weekend with. Like you're the ones that just go to the airport and you like close your eyes and you point.
Hey,
I need a plan. Like I need like a detailed plan with a table of contents, and I just feel like you need like a magic 8-ball. That is amazing. Like
yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. This comes from, also from experience. I know what I need when I hit the road. I have a
no,
road.
I respect it. I mean, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
I learned how to pack for children. I learned how to pack with my siblings and whatnot. I know what kids need on the road. I know what I need on the road. I know what my car needs on the road. So
I'll go on a trip with you any day. Any day.
Yeah, I'm ready for it that comes my way. But yeah, initially we really liked the area of like Savannah, Georgia. And I'm just like, wow, babe, this is beautiful out here. Let's see what things are costing out here. And obviously, 2020, 2022, whatever. And things were already a little bit out of budget for us as far as what we were looking for. So I'm just like, okay, let's keep moving on up north. Let's look at the
Right.
Carolinas. We love the Smoky Mountains and whatnot. So we came up to this area. And sure enough, after scouting for a few months, we found a spot. It's still a small town. We're about 45 minutes from Charlotte, 45 minutes from Greenville, South Carolina. So it's a sweet spot right in the middle and right near the interstate that I feel could be beneficial as well for a furnished finder property. There is some hospitals in the area and things like that, and I'm just like, hey, whenever I'm tired of living up here, I just rent it out. So
So is the plan that you guys are building that one
yes,
and you're gonna live in it
yeah.
for
So
however long, and then the Winterhaven home is fully a rental property now?
well, it's currently a rental property. Yeah,
Right.
it's currently a rental property. We do have a traveling nurse staying there right now in Winter Haven. We were blessed to find her. She's from Michigan. She was working at the Winter Haven Hospital since October, believe it or not.
Wow.
And at some point, she just got tired of being in extended stays because, like I said, there's not many options in Winter Haven. And the
Right.
options that there are, it's shared rooms. And some people are not a shared room kind of person.
Right.
They just want to have their own roof. So we were lucky
Could
enough
she have stayed at the Legoland Hotel for a few months?
yeah,
I mean, why not?
that gets pricey, girl. That's like running people like $250 to $300 a night. So I can only imagine what that would have cost her. But it's a very neat
Right.
hotel. I want to take her there just for a night, just for the heck of it, just to stay in there.
Right.
Aren't you talking to us from your
Yeah.
South Carolina property right now?
Yes,
That's what I
I
thought.
am. Yes, I'm in our South Carolina property right now. Still waiting, getting appliances and TVs through the mail, getting everything ready.
Mhm.
So hopefully after, maybe I don't know if I get someone in the Winter Haven home. Hopefully after August, because our nurse does leave in August. We could either rent this one out or go back to Florida. But honestly, I like it up here. I wouldn't mind, giving that Winter Haven home a run for its money and see how much more can it handle as far as traveling professionals.
Obviously, you've done the short-term rentals and you've done the midterm rentals with the traveling professionals. How do you balance, your strategy there with one versus the other, or what is the appeal to either one, or like as a landlord and an investor, really, like um where do you decide what is best for you? Because I know if you guys are far away, you've got to think of things like property management and turnover, and there's a lot more that goes into it, especially if you're not a mile down the road, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's an awesome question, Katie. Yeah, essentially for anyone in my position, the key is to being a very, very organized person. Here's my agenda right here. I have this thing everywhere I go.
Ah.
I write every single note on here of any project, anything that I have my hands on, because obviously I'm independently contracted. So even that, has to play into where am I going to be at this said point in time, where is my property going to be at, et cetera. So the I really, really turned into long-term hosting right before we purchased this home, because logistically I was just like, I'm not doing the 2-3 night thing anymore. There is a million kinds of scenarios that someone needs a furnished home
Mm-hmm.
for a certain amount of time, an extended period of time. So it could be traveling professionals, it could not. It could just be someone that needs to be away for a little bit, and doesn't have the resources to move their furniture or buy extra
Right.
furniture, whatever the case may
Mm-hmm.
be. So as far as my preference, that is my preference as of now, because I do have a property out of state,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't
Right.
want to be worrying about that property in Florida or even here in South Carolina if I ever am not here for a certain long period of time. Um, and that's when Furnished Finder came into play. I found someone in Furnished Finder in less than a month, to be honest with you. I'm not
It's
getting
great.
paid for this ad or anything. I'm telling you the truth. Less than a month, I got someone on Furnished Finder. And that was great. I was just like, I was hustling it though. I was like, you guys have like a
Right.
little option where you do get people that are looking in Winter Haven but don't necessarily fit the budget that you have it listed for. So things
Uh-huh.
like that, reaching out to tenants, hey, I got this, hey, I got that, or seeing if I can negotiate with them in some way.
Mm-hmm.
Because hey, if at some point someone can't afford the home completely, maybe I can just rent out 2 guest rooms and y'all can
Uh-huh.
share the. There's just so many
Right.
different ways of
I
making
think,
income.
right. I think that's an important point you make, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there are matches that you can see on the back end of the platform,
Mhm.
but to some degree, it's like you also have to get in there and really put the
Yeah,
pieces of the puzzle together to fit, because just like when you're looking for an investment property, you might not find the exact piece. There's always a way to
yeah,
make it fit. If you get creative enough, if you hustle enough, like you said, and if you really put out that communication. I mean, it never hurts to ask, do you have people who might want to share the house, or someone who, they might pay a higher rent if they have a 1 month stay versus your 3 month minimum or something like that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta
yeah,
put yourself out there, and it's not always just gonna flow into your inbox and be all there at once. You might have to dig in a little bit, but
Mm-hmm.
um I think that's a really important note.
yeah. And that's important for anyone that's tuning into this series of podcasts. That getting to know that being a landlord doesn't just mean that you get to, just like you said, list the property and bam, you're going to get the
Right.
tenant that you want.
Mm-hmm.
No, sometimes you need to work with the tenants that you get,
Right.
and making it, obviously cost efficient for everyone. Everyone wants to make profit, but at the same time, we have to think, these are traveling professionals. Work with them, see what their agencies are giving them for per diem, etc. Their travel incentives and stuff like that. What are they getting in order to
Right.
be able to live and be living outside of their base? Like I said,
Right.
my current tenant is from Michigan. That she's a far away from Michigan and Florida, let me tell you. And
Right.
given the fact that she tried doing the extended stay, and they extended her contract again, and she's like, listen, I want to get out of a hotel, and I was able to offer
Mm-hmm.
her that, in the most
Right.
comfortable sense. And obviously, we make it comfortable for them, utilities included, this and that, so they don't have to
Right.
worry about one thing. I mean, we cut the lawn. Like, there's nothing that person has to worry about. They just have to live, be comfortable and go to work every day.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you manage that from far away? Is that challenging, or have you, with your amazing book of organization, figured out like
Yeah. So,
awesome processes? Because you're not 10 minutes away, right? Like,
no,
you
no, I'm
are
10
long distance
hours away.
managing.
I'm 10 hours away. I'm gonna drive
Yeah.
away. So the key is to make friends with your neighbors. Have good neighbors. Be blessed and have great neighbors. Let your neighbors know what you're doing. In the beginning, I'm
Mhm.
a very secretive person. Don't get me wrong. I don't tell everyone everything. But at some point, people start noticing what's going on. Hey, there's a lot of traffic in your house. What's going on? Hey, I'm renting my house from time to time. You'll see new people here. Just keep an eye on the house. Make sure that nothing's out of order.
Right.
If at any time,
Mm-hmm.
one of my tenants has some sort of discrepancy, would you mind being present? Do you mind helping me out? This and
Mm-hmm.
that. So, neighbors is number one.
Right.
And obviously I have good neighbors where they're just friendly in that sense, and they don't mind extending the extra that extra hand as far as any help at any time that I have with a tenant. At the same time, my neighbor, from time to time, she has free time on her hands, and I'd be like, "Hey, do you think you can go clean the house for me? I'll give
Really?
you this for the
Right.
day." And of course, hello, who doesn't want that direct Zelle payment? Anyone?
Who doesn't want that notification on their phone? Like, bing, bing, Sasha paid you.
In the beginning, especially during this time of the middle of the pandemic, people, as we all know, were using Airbnbs for gatherings, and unauthorized gatherings. And I did get two of
Mm,
those. And
right.
it upsetted me because I'm a very honest and straightforward person. And I'm also a softie in the sense that I take um, everyone's whatever it is, whatever they're going through, I take that into
Uh-huh.
consideration. So
Mhm.
another story,
Right.
I had a woman that came down. He said he was going to go visit his daughter for her birthday, and I'm
Mhm.
just like, wow, that's so beautiful. Yes,
Mhm.
of course, bam, approved.
Right.
Guess what? His plans was to throw a full blown birthday party in my house. He did not tell
Oh,
me that.
Right.
Yeah, full blown, like bounce house,
wow.
everything in my yard. 15 cars on my drive, and I have a 6-car driveway. So just imagine that if it filled up my driveway and the street. So
Neighbors were not happy.
the neighbors were like, "Sasha, are you home?" I was
Right.
just,
Right.
I don't know what's going on. Oh, look, they sent me a picture, through the fence. Obviously, you can see the bounce house, and I'm just like, get out of here! Like, what's going on? Like, that's crazy.
Mhm.
So, and things like that. Luckily, we have, in the sense of Airbnb. Sorry, I know we're talking about Furnished Finder, but in the sense of that platform, you have that like complaint thing where you're like,
Right.
listen, there's an unauthorized party, and even then, the guest stopped answering my phone call. Like when I found out that was going on, he put his wife on the
Right.
phone, or the baby's mom. He put the baby's mom on the phone, and I just said, like, listen, like this is unacceptable. Can you hear the tone of my voice? This is unacceptable.
Now
He
that
did
has to be somewhat relieving when you have like a traveling professional or a relocating family or someone who's there for
not.
multiple months, right? Like
Definitely.
A, their plan is not to just be partying, and B,
Mhm.
they I'm assuming, and you could tell me if I'm right or wrong, but that they value their relationship with you as the landlord more because they're not in there for 4 days and then, peace out, whatever it is, it is.
Mhm.
Um, Particularly when you're far away, right? Like,
Yeah, definitely. If that were to happen to me right now, don't get me wrong, I'll get there in 10 hours, but
right,
by
right.
the time I make it there, they're probably checked out. So,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
the tenant that I have right now, I mean, she thanked me so many times, her and her mom, because her mom was helping her throughout the scouting process too, her being a full-time nurse, and she's a night shift nurse. So you can only
right.
imagine, she sleeps through the day, things like that.
Mhm.
So that's kind of like the kind of people that we have to be accommodating to.
Right.
Something as simple as
Mhm.
that, a night shift nurse. I mean, that
Mhm.
is that is
So you're
difficult.
helping out a night shift nurse versus
Mhm.
hosting parties that you weren't aware you were hosting.
Right,
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
unauthorized
that's a
parties.
big from a property owner perspective, like that's a big shift and one that can very much affect your bottom line and the condition of your
Yes,
property and
yes, it's a peace
um
of mind. It's a peace of mind.
right. Okay, so Sasha, I feel like you have a unique perspective because you've done a lot of the different variations of this, right? You've done Airbnb, you've done Furnished Finder, you've done, vacationers, you've done traveling professionals. You've also been, um, local, you've been far away. If you could rewind all the way to the beginning of your journey, what are a few pieces of advice that you would give yourself that have really come in handy now that you've gone through a lot of those paths and you're at a more experienced level now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of moving parts when it comes to renting out a furnished property, because it's not, how we've been speaking out throughout our interview. It's not just a one case scenario fits all. There is people staying
Right.
in the property from all walks of life with all sorts of situations going on. Like you said, from vacationers to people that are transitioning to people that are set to live there for a certain amount of months or weeks. So, getting the house adapted or comfortable enough for that person. In the beginning of my journey, I had in mind, the family friendly sense. So I would
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things that would fit toddler use. I had the playpen, a
Right.
toddler table. And because I have a toddler, I already had my home furnished simple enough where I wasn't worried of anything getting damaged. I don't
Yeah.
have
Right.
beautiful glass decor on my coffee table or nice, beautiful vases that can fall and break. Making it family and kid friendly was my goal at that time.
Right.
And as the months and the guests progressed and my reviews and my feedback, I adapted the home better and better every time. So just to answer your question, Katie, I think that learning from every
Mhm.
guest, from every single guest.
What are some of those tweaks that you made along the way based on feedback?
Yeah, definitely. So, although I had my fair share of experience of, you know, living in B&Bs or living in other properties that weren't necessarily mine, I always tried to take that self experience and adapt that to the rental. But in the beginning, I didn't have much to work with. I was on a budget. I didn't have the
Mhm.
budget that it takes to make, this glamorous guest room. So, I did the Amazon, I did the Walmart.com. I tried to go for the
Mhm.
things that were comfortable enough, simple enough, but at the same time, that wouldn't break my bank.
Right.
So in the beginning, the very, very beginning, I had a queen tall uh, inflatable mattress. So to some people, that's like, oh my God, an inflatable mattress. But I'm just like, at that time, I had listed my home for a price that you couldn't beat in
Right.
the beginning, and you give those first guests a nice cost incentive
Mm-hmm.
for that, and also
Mhm.
for the reviews. So I had an air mattress, and then after that, I'm just like, I need to step it up a notch, and so
Right.
I got a full mattress with a bed platform, and I still had my queen mattress, so I technically had two mattresses in the room. And a few months later, I'm just like, okay, enough of this uh you know inflatable mattress. I don't want my property to be labeled as the inflatable mattress guest room. So then I got rid of
Right.
the inflatable mattress, and then I got two full mattresses. So you can accommodate a family of four if need be. I always tell people, listen, if my home accommodates up to a family of five, I have a playpen for your child, or if you want to bring your own air mattress and put it in the living room.
Mhm.
So it's all those things that, just constantly moving your property up, and then making it more comfortable for not just one or two people, but for a family. Also, having simple silverware and things for children. So I went to IKEA and got myself all this cute little IKEA plates and silverware for the kids and cups for the kids and things like that, so they won't be breaking my glass cups. You know,
Right.
Right.
so um, minor things like that, making sure that I have enough toiletries for the guest, making sure that I have enough towels,
Right.
because it is an Airbnb, and it happens in hotels as well, where the towels get stained.
Mm-hmm.
I've had guests that decided to dye their hair black and use my white towels to dry their hair.
Uh-oh.
It happens. Hey,
Now,
it happens to
is
us.
there anything that you've learned specifically that traveling nurses or more of the monthly stay renters want, or are looking for? I mean, obviously, they probably want like a nice, comfortable bed or,
Yeah.
anything like that, because I think that's also you're dead on. I think with speaking with tailoring it to your your target market and who is using your property.
Yes.
And I like what you said about how you don't have to invest all at once, right?
Mhm.
But take chunk by chunk and like pick the things that are going to make the biggest impact for your guest and start knocking them off that list, right?
Yeah.
I'm curious what those who stay on like a monthly basis or 6 weeks, 8 weeks at a time, like what are those what are those target markets? What have you found like makes a really big difference for them as far as maybe furnishings or amenities?
Yeah. So the most important thing to someone that's staying long term is the guest room. Obviously, the fact that they have a full kitchen to live off of and not
Right.
have to go out
Hmm.
to dinner every day is a huge plus too, because those professionals that are stuck living on an extended stay, yeah, some of them might have their kitchenettes and their little fridges, but the fact that they have a full size kitchen with everything you
Right.
can possibly think of that they can use to prepare a meal, to prepare their meals to go to work, etc. So they don't have to be relying on buying things in the cafeteria
Hmm.
or ordering Uber Eats every shift. So
Right.
essentially, the guest room is it's what I focus on. My first few professionals, I went from the two beds. They didn't need two beds in there. I made his room
Mm.
nice and comfortable. Put the one bed, gave him the nice fluffy sheets, gave him the nice fluffy comforter. Um, you know, 4 pillows, that kind of thing, where they would feel comfortable as if it were their own home,
Right.
even though his food wasn't there, but as if it were his own home for that period of time that he had to be there for that assignment. With my current tenant, I asked her, I said, listen, this is the options that I have as far as sorry, as furnishings and mattresses. I don't know if any of you are into like Harry Potter, but I consider the guest room like the magic room. It's like it has all
Yeah.
of I stage that room however you need it,
You're right.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I spoke to my current tenant. I said, listen, would you mind having the two beds, or would you just like me to leave you one bed, or would you like a queen bed? Because my
Right.
current the mattresses I had there were two full sizes.
Right.
Obviously for any family that's just coming for a few days, going to the park, sleeping for a few hours, they don't mind that. But someone that's going to be living there, I took that into consideration and I asked her, listen, I have this queen mattress, this bed, everything. Would you like me to make the bed accommodated for you, the room accommodated for you in that sense? And she said, yeah, sure, of course, I'd love a queen pillow top, whatever. So I did that.
Right.
I moved over the bed from one of my other rooms. I steamed clean it, did everything to make it sure and feel brand new. And
Right.
I gave her the queen mattress and the queen bed and furniture and all the good stuff. So I made the room comfortable for her. I put the blackout shades, things like that, the blackout curtains, I'm
Hmm.
sorry, on things like that, that she would actually feel comfortable, because her being a night nurse, she's sleeping through the day. So
Mhm.
obviously
Right.
the sun is out during the day. And, I made sure that she had the curtains and everything that she needed to keep the room nice and dark during the day for her resting period of time.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I think we've gone through the landlord logistics section without actually saying it. So, thank you for
I
everything that you've
agree.
shared, Sasha. And we've got one last section that we cover. And I'm going to kind of jump into a couple things with it. And we call it the favorite Furnish Finder and Keycheck uh, features. And so,
Yeah,
pricing we haven't talked about. You've got a home um, in Florida, Winterhaven, Florida, and then you have a home in South Carolina, a little town close to a bunch of big cities.
yeah.
So, did you use Furnish Finder to help decide how to price that? And how do have you found it a lot different than the Airbnb pricing? Like, what's your pricing?
Yeah, so the way I found my pricing, I kind of did a various forms of just narrowing down the right price
Hmm.
for what I thought I offer in my property.
Okay.
Uh, Taking into consideration that a lot of travel nurses do live in hotels,
Hmm.
in which some of them might feel comfortable and others might not. I
Hmm.
said,
Hmm.
how much is your typical nurse paying a week?
Uh-huh.
And I broke it down. And I'm just like, well, that's not a bad price to
Hmm.
list a whole house for. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Thankfully, the mortgage is still at a point where I can pay that off. The utilities are not a huge expense. So I kind of took that into consideration and then said, okay, well, I still have enough profit here to work with where I can, hey, it can pay off my other bills.
Hmm.
So,
Right.
so that's how I started with that. And I also kind of used the other platform that I used to host on,
Hmm.
B&B. This is not a commercial for them. It's about Furnished Finder, but I did use
This is share
that.
economy, so you can talk about
Yeah,
we wanna talk about what you use, not, while
yeah,
we are Furnish Finder, we know that a
yeah.
lot of our landlords use Airbnb or VRBO,
Mhm.
and we encourage that.
Yeah, and there's strategy, right, where you can use
Yeah.
both or a
Right.
mixture or different seasons or different time. I mean, there's
Definitely.
no
Yeah. So
wrong answer.
definitely. So don't get me wrong. Even right now, the property is listed, but you have that option of blocking out whoever is currently living in your home. So obviously, you
Mhm.
block out your calendar for that period of time that someone's occupying your home, and it doesn't interfere with any way when you're using another platform. But as
Right.
far as getting that price point narrowed down to something that works for everyone, I used Airbnb as well, and I said, okay, so what am I charging right now nightly? Okay, this and that. And then I said, okay, but look at all these freaking
Mhm.
fees that people
Mhm.
are having to pay. That money's not going to me.
Mhm.
So
Right.
they're paying all that
And it's
extra
not
money.
a small amount.
No, it's hundreds of dollars.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And yeah, they say that they have insurance and blase squaze, and I had to deal with all that before, and it's not as easy as it's stated on the platform,
Right.
for you to
Right.
get your money and whatnot. So maybe things have changed, but I hope to not have to use that ever again. But as far as
Yeah.
getting it priced, I'm just like, listen, people are paying this amount to Airbnb, and I'm coming out of this, and I'm still having to give them a 3% fee.
Mhm.
So
Right.
can we just offer the person what I would, rent the house for without all those Airbnb fees and stuff like that?
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and like we said, I was blessed enough that this person was okay with that price. It might come a point where, hey, things are changing in our economy, and some people might have a certain budget, and I might have to rent out two guest rooms to make up for that one tenant,
Mhm.
and that's
Sure.
completely fine. It's just it's a constant evolvement. So I narrowed down my price. Like I said, using B&B, how much I was charging on that platform, and at the same time doing the math of how much a traveling nurse pays at a hotel.
You're right.
You're getting
Mhm.
Mhm.
a full home for what you're paying at a hotel for a month.
Mhm.
You have your privacy, you have all your amenities and the comfort of a
Right.
home for the same price.
So I'm going
Yeah.
to add to that and say that you have a property in Florida, South Carolina. So it's likely you're going to have another one down the road, and you're currently deciding how to price your South Carolina property as well. So my
Yeah.
recommendation is on Furnished Finder under the Resources tab. There's both
Yes.
for travelers or for landlords. You can go to the property owner resources or the traveler resources, and there's what's called a travel. Uh, Nurse housing demand, and it shows you a graph of how much each section. It's like a little pie chart of the pricing for each rental type in the area. So it's a really helpful tool if you go to the resources tab, and it'll show you just a rough idea of how much properties are renting out on average throughout the year. And as a host in Austin, Texas, and I've
Uh-huh.
heard this from quite a few other hosts, typically I increase my price during the spring and summer months and decrease it a little during the
Mhm.
winter months, and that's worked. Sometimes if it's really close and I don't have a renter yet, then I just go ahead and kick it down a couple $100 and constantly reevaluate on Furnish Finder to make sure that I'm in the right price range as well.
And I think that's what's important. And you've hit
Mhm.
on this a lot, Sasha. And I
Mhm.
think it's very evident in your story
Uh-huh.
that is so key for individual and family property investors is pivoting and adjusting constantly. And I can see it so clearly with your story, Sasha, that every time you hit a roadblock, even if it was just, hey, being like, I don't want to be here anymore,
Mhm.
or it's time we buy out. Anytime you hit a roadblock, not getting defeated and seeing it as the end, but seeing it as, okay, like now we got to figure out this. Now we got to figure out this.
Mhm.
It's the same as when you say you're getting these housing matches that aren't complete matches. It's
Mhm.
how do you make it work? I heard one adage once that like there's no such thing as an investment property that won't work. It's just you have to look at it from all sorts of different angles. Maybe that property doesn't work for you or your goals, but there's always a way to pivot it. And
Yeah.
especially with the options we have, and you're right, like the amenities and the different things that we can offer tenants, and um there's always the option to twist things, which I think is something that you have very much taken advantage of
Yes.
in a great way.
Yes. Any last things we want to talk about, ladies? Katie, you got any more questions?
I'm good.
Sasha, any other Furnish Finder or Keycheck features you want to discuss?
Oh, sure. So going back to Keycheck and whatnot, Keycheck, it was obviously my first time utilizing that platform through my Furnished Finder tenant, but it was very like user friendly to say the least. I found it very user friendly. It wasn't too complicated to move around the platform and send those invoices or send that background check feature and things like that. Kelly did make it clear to me that there is a minor. I thought that it was a different kind of fee because they used the Stripe platform to send
For
payments.
rent
And
payments.
so my tenant kind of wasn't having that, she had to pay the certain percentage, but that's because she was using a debit card. So the fact that it could actually pay a very minimal fee just to send that monthly payment, that's a plus as well. So and all in all, I think that this has been a great interview. I appreciate all the questions. And for any other host or landlords out there in my position or that are looking to do what we do, honestly, just go with your gut.
Jump in the
Always
game.
don't be scared of transition. It's a property. You can transition it to anyone at any given time, and just go for it. I think that this is a kind of revenue stream that is beneficial for everyone. You're giving a service that's needed. I mean, it's housing, and it's furnished housing.
Yep. Yep.
People of all sorts of walks of life that need that service, and then and it's a good thing that we get to get paid for offering that service. So I recommend it to anyone that's on the fence about making a decision in this field.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being us.
No problem. Thank you, ladies, and I'm happy that you guys have chosen me to be on the show. You take care.
Bye, Sasha.
Thank you so much.